Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the March episode of Uncensored and In Charge. I am Erin Childs, and so happy to be here with you today. It is conference season. So today we are going to be diving in on how to maximize conference season and what you can do to get the most out of industry conferences. These are something that are an investment to businesses and individuals. And I think that it's extremely important that we kind of touch on the important parts of it so that as we ramp up and as everyone heads off to lots of different conferences that I know have just happened, are happening, and everything like that, that you kind of have a little bit of a good plan moving forward and that you're going to maximize it to the best of your ability. Maximizing conference season will allow for you to turn conferences into actual real business impact, right? Subtle thoughts on this are learning, networking, bringing that value back to your team, if that makes sense, right? So why conferences matter, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, they allow for investments to be made into people, into a company investing in their people, first of all, and they allow for you to have industry insights and trends of what's happening in your industry. They allow for you to have access to experts and leaders. They allow for great networking opportunities, competitive intelligence, and fresh ideas and innovation, all which are really, really important. As you know, I talk about it each year as we head into new times. I think that it's important that we're constantly giving ourselves refreshing new thoughts and ideas, and you do that by talking and getting together with people within your industry. I think the goal of conferences should always be to turn your attendance there into real business results so that you're not just going to waste your time and your money or your company's money. I think that really making sure that you're checking and really doing what matters at conferences holds up with real value. What conference season looks like to many people. It can be very exciting and it can be very overwhelming. You might be attending conferences this year that you've attended in the past, or you could be going to new conferences that you've never attended before. They usually will be filled with packed schedules, dozens of different sessions, vendor meetings, networking events, travel time away from your actual job that's normal day-to-day stuff. They'll be filled with late nights sometimes, fun people always. But without a plan on what you're doing, it's going to be easy to miss key opportunities at these conferences and forget important insights that you learn and return kind of with no clear takeaways. So it's always important to have plans, right? And so 3 phases of conference success, as I believe it to be, is that you always want to prepare. Now, before I dive a little bit into this, I just want to say, usually preparing not just for an actual conference that you're going to, but preparing your year ahead. At the end of a year, you want to kind of take a look, okay, what conferences did I attend this year? What was good? What wasn't? And now as we're headed into this new season, most likely you've already picked your conferences for this 2026 year. So you want to prepare for where you're going way in advance of March of this year. Now, a conference that you didn't realize is happening could pop up. So I hope everyone understands the bigger picture I'm laying out when you start your year. When we talk about goals, right? Make sure that you've got conferences listed in there. If you can attend 1 to 2 conferences a year, I feel like that's so awesome. Definitely try to hit 1. I feel like that's important. So back to the 3 phases of conference success. So you want to prepare before the conference, okay? And you want to make sure that there's engagement during the conference, and then you want to make sure that there's implementation after a conference, right? Most teams do 1 and 2. They prepare and they engage, and then they return and they don't implement. And a lot of times I feel like it can get lost if we're not actually implementing what we're learning, and it just gets lost, right? So before the conference preparation, really matters, and this can make the biggest difference in what you're actually going to be getting out of the conference. So, successful teams will oftentimes review the agenda early. They will identify must attend sessions. They will schedule vendor or partner meetings well in advance, and they'll set clear goals that they intend to get out of the conference or that they want to experience at the conference. One of the things that I've been doing with my clients a lot this last year or two is they will send me the conferences that they are going to attend or their team members are going to attend. They will have the agenda out. They will send me the agenda. They will send me the sessions that they're being offered. I will also review those sessions and I will suggest the sessions that they attend. Now I'm talking about C-level executives down to regular hourly management that might be going as well. The reason why we find value in this is because I might have found a session that has value to somebody that didn't necessarily think that they would find value in it. So having somebody to bounce it off of is very valuable, and I think is something that you should consider when you are planning and preparing for a conference. Have your boss or have somebody else say, "What do you think of this lineup of sessions for this? Do you agree? Do you not agree?" Because sometimes there might be value in some of the courses or sessions rather that are being offered that I think sometimes leaders might miss. So it's something to be aware of as part of the preparation process. Okay. When you're preparing for all this, make sure you're asking yourself what you want to learn at the conference, who you want to meet, and what problems are you trying to solve by going to either this conference or these sessions. All super important and really valuable information to hold so that when you're picking your sessions that you have that in mind. What am I trying to learn? What am I trying to understand? Where are weaknesses within our four walls or within our organization that this session can bring me value that I can bring back? Setting clear goals. There are specific objectives that good conference attendees have, right? So I always say identify 3 industry trends that are new, happening, that you want to take in, that you can bring back. Meet 5 new contacts. 5, why? Because I don't know, I feel like 5 is an easy number and it is a little bit of a push, but not necessarily doesn't have to feel so overwhelming. Discover tools that improve efficiency and bring back ideas that are going to improve your organization, your catering program, your management style, your display settings, whatever it is that your goals are. Make sure you bring those ideas back and even write those down. 3 industry trends, 5 new contacts, tools to improve efficiency at your organization, and ideas to improve your program, your catering operation, your setups, that kind of stuff. Without goals, conferences just become travel and sessions that you're attending. And honestly, as I said in the beginning, a waste of time for your company or you. And it's not worth it, right? We're these are privileges that we get to travel and go on these conferences. So making sure that you're getting the most out of it and those who are attending are getting the most out of it, I think are extremely important. During conferences, I think that it's extremely important to be intentional, right? So once you're there, focus and be an active participant, right? Attend key sessions, obviously keynote speakers. There's always like a big, opening night or opening morning, stuff like that. Make sure you're active there. Make sure you're walking up and feel comfortable and confident to say, hello, how are you? My name is Erin. It's nice to meet you. Where are you from? Think of questions ahead of time that you can have if you're not necessarily comfortable in social settings at that regard. Hopefully you are, if I'm talking at this level, but where that you feel that you can participate and ask nice questions to people who you're meeting for the first time to engage and get to know them. Take notes on ideas and trends. Always carry a notebook and a pen and a paper. I know, or your phone, and put it into notes or a live Google Doc as you're typing it. Sometimes people will set the recording so that they can hear it and then they'll go back and they'll review that type of stuff. Whatever it is, whatever your note taking trends are or habits are, just make sure that you're taking notes on the trends that are going on so that you're, taking it back with you. Um, Visit vendors with a purpose. Now, sometimes some of your vendors are at conferences, and sometimes you might never have the ability to have direct contact with your vendors because someone in ops is dealing with it or whatever. So I think that it's extremely important that you go up and you introduce yourself and your company and what you do for them and how much you appreciate their business, especially because good partnerships matter, and vendors that are there that are already existing partners might also be able to help introduce you to other people that might add value to you while you're at this conference. Okay. You are there most importantly to represent your team and bring value back. You are representing your brand at conferences. You are representing yourself if you are self employed or it's your own little restaurant that you have. So remember that it's an extremely important detail that I think sometimes people will often forget. Why networking matters at conferences, and sometimes people get a little uncomfortable with this because they just haven't done it enough, right? Attending conferences gives you kind of an understanding, if you do it enough, how they flow, the ways that you get to network and meet people and get invited to events that are happening, dinners and that kind of stuff. These matter. Networking leads to new partnerships. They lead to best practices. They lead to industry insights. They lead to career growth for yourself or your team. So it's extremely important that you remember why networking matters, because you could meet somebody at a conference. And I'll actually give a better example. I'll give an example. A few years ago, I was at a conference. I had met a bunch of incredible women, um, and they were all leaders within the catering world themselves and heads of their departments and all this stuff. And we got chatting over a, breakout session or whatever, and really became good friends. We are still friends to this day. We still support each other. We cheer each other on through LinkedIn. And sometimes I've had clients that are traveling for work and they've needed a reference somewhere for food out in Chicago. I've reached out to that person and said, "Hey, I've got this client there. Will you take care of them?" So that's what networking, where it really can show and have great effects for you. So remember that when you're out meeting all of these people, it's not just to waste time, it's really to add value and impact to you and your brand. Um, Simple tips for anyone that hasn't attended conferences and is tuning in: introduce yourself to someone new at every single session that you go to. Ask, what are you seeing in the industry right now? It's a great starter question. Or what are some of your biggest challenges right now? This was really easy in the post-COVID world because I think everybody was trying to operate and figure out what to do. But now we're really past that. So I think it's really wonderful for people to start asking, what are we seeing in the industry right now? Exchange contact information, connect on LinkedIn, CaterLinked, connect on all of these social platforms so that you have access to reach out to that individual for further, conversation and engagement. Make sure that you capture key takeaways, right? So you want to make sure that you're writing down the trends that you're seeing, you're noticing, you're talking about. You make sure you're writing down ideas worth exploring further that you hadn't really thought about and decided, you know what, this is kind of interesting. I really do want to understand this a little bit better, or I want to understand this a little bit better in my area. That's extremely important. um, Quotes and insights from speakers. So oftentimes I will find myself always taking pictures of keynote speaker addresses. They'll put up cool slides or statistics on catering and all this stuff. And I always take pictures of it. And I love this because I go back and I find the exact data that when I'm sharing it with my team, I'm sharing live statistical information that I wasn't necessarily drumming up and that I learned at this conference and that I thought was very valuable. And I think that doing stuff like that is extremely important to bring it back to your teams because sometimes it's just information that we don't really think about that somebody's bringing to our attention. So I find value with that. I always say when you're taking away from conferences to try the 3-3-3 rule: three trends, three ideas, three contacts from that specific thing, or five contacts, as I was just saying earlier. But it's a baseline for you. It's the I have to figure these things out because this is where you're going to push yourself to learn and take more from the conference than you realize. Okay? The most important thing that I think we often lose, and I said this in the beginning, is that after the conferences, we've gathered all this information and we come back and we literally don't share anything that we learned. People will say, well, not all of us, but sometimes people will say, how was it? Oh, it was great. Here's like this one thing I learned, or these two things that I learned, and that's it. They don't really often hold meetings or share that information with their teams at the level that I think that they should. So I think that it's extremely important that you make it the goal to share. I'm bringing this information back to my team. I'm bringing this information back to our leaders, my leaders, whoever it is. Um, and you're formally presenting the takeaways to them. And you're recommending and comparing the takeaways that you're taking from what you learned and bringing it to your brand. And you're recommending the improvements at your brand and your company. And then always follow up with the new contacts that you made. People love to connect at these things. And then you could say, what other conferences are you going to? And then you go to the next conference and you see these people that you've met and you reconnect with them again. And then it continues and you build the relationship and the rapport and you see where I'm going. Knowledge should multiply and it shouldn't just stay with one person. And I think it's extremely important that we remember that when we are going to these conferences, because sometimes it just kind of gets lost and the notes get lost in the notebook and we don't get it off our paper and share it with everybody. Turning ideas into action. So we've gone to the conference, we've gathered all of our information, we've got so much, we feel invigorated and we're so excited to bring this back to our team. What did we learn? Okay, so that's one of the takeaways that you want to say. What did I learn at this conference? What can I immediately apply to our team that will make an impact? And who's going to pilot the execution of these things? Sometimes it's you. Sometimes you could be at a conference, and I've been at a conference and literally thought, this would be perfect for Jason to do. This would be perfect for Max to do, right? So when you're thinking of all of this, also be thinking about the team members who would be helping implement that information. Okay. Even if one thing can be implemented you take one thing from a conference and you actually implement it into your brand, I can tell you the entire trip will be worth it. So remember that as you're headed off to these conferences, or if you've just returned from conferences, think about what you took away and say, is there one thing I can legitimately inject into my brand that's going to make a difference immediately? And put the pressure on yourself or your team to actually make it happen. And it makes the whole conference worth it. And then keep track of it and see how it went, right? When you don't maximize conferences, when they aren't used effectively, you're going to forget all the ideas that you had, your networking opportunities. If you really don't follow up and it's just kind of like whatever, you're missing it. Teams won't see the value that you see because you're not sharing it. And honestly, as I said, conferences become just a waste of time and money for you and your company. And that isn't what, and nobody should have that mentality at all, right? Um, it's it's as I was saying, a privilege to have somebody invest in you to go to a conference. So remember that when you're out there and why you're there. The impact of doing conferences in the right way um, allows for better strategies when you're there, new ideas and the innovation, as I was saying, connecting really strongly with great individuals in the industry, and it will give you a competitive advantage. Okay. Conferences get to be used as fuel for growth, which is something that you should always be striving for. Um, Prepare yourselves, prepare your team, engage, share your knowledge, turn insights into action so that your entire organization can benefit from you attending the conference. Now, um, the conferences, as we know, are opportunities for us to learn and connect and improve and grow. But this is an interesting thing. What happens? Say you've gone to a ton of conferences, say you go to the same conferences each year, and I know a lot of us have. What happens when you reach the the point at a conference when it didn't give you anything, where it literally didn't feel like you should be there, where you felt, and I mean this sincerely, where you knew it all already because you've attended it a bunch and because you as a leader have grown so much that you aren't challenged there anymore. And there are conferences that I think leaders max out at. And I've had this conversation recently. You max out at a conference and you think to yourself, oh God, I'm not the right person that should be here today. I should have sent this person or this person because you've grown so much as a leader. Now it's time for you to go on and explore higher level conferences or different conferences that have a more specific focus on something that you need to become more masterful in as a leader, if that makes sense. So when we're looking at conferences in general, I think that it's extremely important that if you feel that you aren't retaining or getting enough thoughtfulness or intensity out of it in a positive way, then you need to go find the conferences that will serve you better. And I think that it's extremely important that we recognize leadership growth. And when we get to the top where we need to be, that there are more levels to go up, but we have to find different conferences. And then we have whoever is coming behind us filling in and learning more, right? We'll send team members to conferences who have never been, and they can be so overwhelmed by attending conferences because they just don't know how to network. They don't know how to do some of the things that I've been talking about in the last 15 points that I've made. I think that it's extremely important that you make sure whoever you are sending to conferences are ready to go to conferences. And there is a training and there is a mindset that you can put together behind that to make sure that the right people are going and it's not just like a group of your team members walking around lost, confused, and really like, oh yeah, that was really fun. I got to fly to, Arizona and I met some people and they're kind of fish out of water the first time. So if you are sending new people to conferences, please make sure that you send somebody who's experienced and can kind of walk them through the process so that the next time that they might go on their own, that you know that you're getting value from them and that they're getting value from the conference and that they're bringing it back to your team. Okay. I think that really kind of covers most of my thoughts. Share your thoughts at conferences that you take back, implement something valuable to your team. And with that said, I'm going to open it up to see if there are any questions. I mean, I know that some of you have probably attended conferences and said that was a waste of my time, or that was one of the best conferences that I've ever attended. So meeting 5 people And having connections with at least 5 people is definitely value as far as I'm concerned, because you can spread your wings and go outside of your 4 walls and really start to build your network of people and build a good rapport and relationship with them. So, if there are any questions, I will answer them. Otherwise, that is my little short stint on our March catering, Uncensored and In Charge. I don't see any questions. So, with that said, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their month. Remember, as you head out on conferences, be prepared, bring value back, share it with your team, meet 5 people, and travel safely, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Take care.